Hello everybody. So I'd like to go over like a basic way to get a model of a chair. And what I'm doing here is starting with the box for the proximity for the area that you want to model inside of. When you look on the website, it usually gives you the dimensions in a picture and a few views of the object. See your length, your width, your height. You'll type that in, and this is going to be a chair that I had modeled. This should only be about 30 minutes from beginning to the end of the model. I don't really texture this one in this video, but this is kind of the start out how you get there. So what I'm doing right here is getting the length, putting at 0. You always want to start at zeros because it's always easier when you try to work in symmetry. And what I'm doing right here is just getting a box, and usually what I'll do is turn this box into a transparent object and either freeze it, and when I freeze it I'll have it ghosted to where it doesn't show it fully, a solid color in 3D Max. That other box right there was a seat height, and I'll use that for how high the seat needs to go. And within that, they don't usually tell you how big an armchair is going to be or little things like that. So right here I'm turning the box gray, and you can see that it's going to be kind of transparent. I think I put it on like x-ray or see-through. And right now I'm kind of talking through this because I recorded it as I was modeling it, but now I'm going back and narrating over it. And you can see going in here, see what I select, box. And what I'll usually do is when I get a box, I'll put it at center. I'll divide it down the middle. And that's probably what I'm going to do next. I'm going to turn it to an edit poly. Let's see. So going in here, making sure it's at 0. And I think I'm looking at the coordinates now. Now it's an editable poly. I'm going to put a ring. Select the edges, slice it down the middle, remove the other side, and then we're going to mirror it as an instance. This way, if you model one side, you get the other side too. It kind of knocks out half your modeling. This will save you a lot of time in the long run if you're on a deadline. Checking it out, looking at I'll probably have a picture on the side, looking at it and going back and forth between that and this. But you can see that I'm kind of getting the chair fleshed out, but within this bounding box. Let's see. And so I snap it to the edge so I can actually offset it probably about 1 inch or 2 or 3. Just kind of eyeball it from the picture to this and that. And you'll see this slowly will take shape. It's kind of like rough at first without the reference image. You could probably type it up. I think I named it the same. Okay, so you can see that I mirrored it, and so if you do one side, it'll do the other. Saves you a lot of time in the long run. This is mainly for the cushion that you're going to sit on, and hopefully that stays pretty good. Well, it does in the end. It worked out. And then I put the base at the bottom because I know it's just going to be extruded down. You're not going to look under the seat anyway. You get your cushion, then you kind of got your little base of the. Now just remove that since you don't need anything else. No wasted geometry. Edge loop or ring it, whatever software you're in, different names. So I'm gonna put some extra cuts in there so that whenever I do a turbo smooth or use NURMS subdivision, it'll give it more of a fluffy look. And what I'll do is grab the little bit right there on the inset and pull that out to give it a little more cushiony look. And I'll probably do it. This whole seat will have the same technique. I'll slice near the edge and pull it out. Now I start working on the seat. It looks like unless I change something. And sometimes it depends on how, you know, sometimes I don't want to go to the box, I guess. That's what I'm doing here. Probably gonna slice it. Oh, I'm trying to select it, I guess. There you go. And I guess duplicating an object that's already mirrored and created is a lot easier than doing a box, snapping it to the center and trying to make that work instead of just using what you already got, put it where it needs to be, and then just remove the other parts. And really, you're just starting with the box anyway. There's nothing fancy about this. You're just doing box modeling that turns into an object in the end. So what I'll do is extrude this up, snap it to the top. That's the dimensions of what the website was saying. And whether or not it has an arc, I guess you'll push or pull the model back and forth. It looks like I'm going to snap it to the edge of that, so it gives it a little angle in the back of the seat. Same thing right here. I'll probably pull that up. You know, just get kind of close. You can kind of see where it's coming. You see the back of the seat. I'll probably have a little arm in a bit. Right now, just kind of analyzing it. Now it looks like I'm going to bring it down. And it's hard to tell what I'm going right there. So I'm subdividing this, adding some iterations. Looks like I'll probably go to 2 in the end, I believe. I'm going to connect it, make one at the top, close to the top, one close to the bottom. Putting an edge loop right there on the edge, ring it, connecting it. Gives it more sharper edge, but as you push and pull, it'll give a softer edge too, or pushing that edge loop or the ring, whichever software you're in. They all call it different names for whatever. And then I'll probably do the back end right here too. That's my template. I'll probably turn it off right here, I think, because we're not going to need it. I already got the seat height, I got the seat back height, and I got the width. And then as long as the ground is going to be the same, I'm not moving the ground. So I'm putting edge loops in for this subdivisions, adding a little more creases here and there. It looks boxy right now, but as you see in a bit, I'm going to start pushing the insets a little bit more to where right here, and it gives a little more cushiony feel. See that? A little softer feel, not so boxy. So I go back and forth. There you go. And I do the same for all of the whole thing. And if as long as you have it snapped to the center, it should be good. So we'll push this to the side, and then look at the bottom. There's an extrusion, so there's an extra face. So delete that interface, and now it should weld in the center. We're going to put some cuts at the top and the bottom, and this should work for any other program. ZBrush, Maya, Blender, they all work about the same if you're doing box kind of modeling with like a turbo smooth or mesh smooth or whatever they call it in any other program. This technique works in just about anything. Cinema 4D, it's actually where I kind of learned this technique anyway, was Cinema 4D. It seemed to work, and it's a lot faster than trying to do, I don't know how I was modeling back then, but it took a long time. And this seems to work. Over time you start learning quicker methods. So right here I'm going to go ahead and subdivide the bottom. You can push or pull depending on how much tension or how creased you want it. I'll probably give it another subdivision or iteration to make it to be like 2 or something like that later on. That way it gives a little more smoothness. Let's see what we do. So right here I'm going to try to cushion out the edges instead of it. And this is all real time as I'm modeling. It's not sped up or anything. Oh, okay. So right here I'm going to use that part of the mesh since it's already mirrored or, well, I think the pivot's the same, so it doesn't matter. So if I mirror and weld, or mirror instance, it should mirror based on the center of the world axis. So let's see. So we go up to snap it in. Ooh, now I went a little different route. Commentating after you model something is kind of tricky, because sometimes you do stuff different, and sometimes you do it the old way, or sometimes you try something new. It's all about learning as you go. Might have found an easier technique to do this part, but whatever the reason was, it probably made sense at the time. So I'll probably extrude this out, and this is going to be the little arm, and we'll snap things. And don't forget to use your snaps. That'll help make your model a lot cleaner. That way you're not trying to fight two vertices that are on the same plane. We're going to level this out too. Snap that back down. Same thing here. Boom, boom. And then snap it over. Yeah. And the bottom one too. Don't forget the bottom. There you go. See? And boom. Easy. So you can see the chair's already about halfway there without the legs. We'll probably subdivide this one in a bit. I guess, okay, yeah. So you got to shape it, and it's kind of like a little easy to work with, even though it's box modeling, but it's still organic enough to be able to be soft and cushiony. And depending on the textures you put, sometimes you'll get a really cool result. Just use a basic box modeling to get these simple chairs and stuff like that. So now you'll go ahead and just kind of fine tune it as you go. And as you keep doing more furniture, stuff like this, you'll get faster. If you're a beginner, just keep practicing at it. It'll get easier. And this technique can work in other programs, like I said. I've been trying to use other programs outside of Max, but sometimes, you always go back to where you started. Max is my first program that I started 3D in, so that's always going to be the habit. I guess it's just snap it. I thought I would do it on the center, but little quickness. I guess it was time based in modeling this. So okay, let's see what we do here. Oh, we're gonna get within the right here. Sometimes you got to type it in to actually get a good offset on there. And let's see, make this lined up. I think the chair had a little comes out a little bit more. Yeah, it flared out a little bit. Good reading chair. One of those little chairs you want to sit down and read a book in. Might need an ottoman to it later on, but for now this is what you get. So let's see where we go from here. Alright. Looking at the model, probably analyzing it. Okay. More geometry down. And sometimes going by when you type in your dimension or grabbing vertices and going down just by inches, that'll help it look a little bit more natural if you don't know the exact measurement from one point to another. Usually if you do it in like 2s or 3, 2 inches off or 2 more inches down, you can see in the picture that it'll match a little bit closer. Sometimes your armchair be close to 2 or 3 depending on what kind of chair it is, but mostly it's like about 3 inches. So now I'm going to start defining these edges and get a little more sharp edges going on. Clean it up a little bit. Now you can see it kind of coming along a little bit better. You can push or pull, slide it along your axis That way you can kind of smooth it out, whether you need it a little bit smoother, like I was saying. And sometimes, you know, you gotta eyeball it. It's back and forth, back and forth. Just after a while, you'll learn to get this going. If you ever have to remove an edge loop, Control Backspace should remove it. Unless you change your hotkey, then I don't know what it is. But for default Macs, it should be that. So we're softening up the model and pushing and pulling, making it smoother, making it a little more comfy. That way it's not so rigid. And sometimes a little more chaotic is a little bit more natural. That gives a little more realistic feel, because nothing in like life is too perfect, but then just that little bit of human error is what kind of makes it. It helps give a little more natural feel. So kind of putting these cushions in and out, in there. Okay, so now you can start seeing the chairs coming together. It's gonna be a green chair, you know, lime green. I'm kidding. It's probably gonna be like some tan or a light creamy color from the brochure. I'm pretty sure it was. I think it was a light fabric. But we got this going. We're gonna cushion that up. But sometimes if you find out it's not cushiony enough, just grab more of the inset. You know, it'll pull everything with it. You know, your edge loops are on the edge of your model, so you can go back and forth with that. Give it a little more softness to it. See? Snap it. Boom. And it gives a little corner. See there. Analyzing that. And I got a hotkey for the NURMS subdivision on my Edit Poly. Instead of using a turbo smooth modifier on top of it and jumping back and forth trying to hope that you got it right, I have it within the Edit Poly, so I just push like I don't remember what it is. It's like Control D or something like that for my hotkey, and it'll, maybe a Shift D, I forget, but it'll go to NURMS, check on and check off, and that speeds up the process instead of having to go back, check the little box, go back, model, move it again. And this is, you can kind of give an instant feeling. And I think it's the same kind of setup in ZBrush now, to where you can do, I know it's a different program, but you can do something similar. And that's, you know, I've been doing that technique for years, but it works. I'm glad other programs do something similar. So you can see here, I'm just trying to give a little more angles to this chair. Sometimes if it's too vertical and up and down, it looks weird. Just something about chairs, they gotta lean. They don't look comfortable. So I'm looking at it from all angles right here. So other than that, you're pretty much just needing like legs. If you're really looking at this, if you're needing like a simple box model chair. And that's what we're doing here. So let's see what I'm trying to think on what I put down here. If it's the base, let's find out. So I'm gonna go ahead and mirror it right here, removing one side. Mirror instance, so you can do both ends. And snap it down the middle. Sometimes putting the pivot at 0 helps too, if later on you start trying to do some other things with it. But over time you'll learn what you can get away with, and if you're trying to get faster or get some models out within a reasonable time without wasting a lot of time. And these type of models usually work from a distance, unless you're going to zoom in real close and you got to put like real heavy detail. That's probably not going to be this model. It's going to be more of a in the scene kind of chair. So it's a platform for all that stuff, I guess, right there. Let's see if we smooth it out. Looking at it. And sometimes I guess you can use a lot of time actually doing test renders of a model, and that's where a lot of times sometimes will go. I don't know if it's habit when you just get lost in that, just render model. That'll take a lot of time. If you notice, I haven't rendered once. I'm just modeling right now. I'm just running to the finish line. You know, just eye on the prize, just going forward, just running, boom, 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 boom. There you go. Gotta get that leg. Scaled it. Yeah, there you go. I'll probably instance it over for each leg. And snap to. Boom. And probably push it off a little bit too, because I don't know if it, let's see if I do it on this one. Yeah, I do push it off because you don't want it to on the edge, because it's going to be smoothed out anyway. You need to make sure that it's not going to be hanging off. Your leg fall off and you're a digital person, break a leg, and you know, be bad. So I'm scaling on the X and the Y, not the Z. This is a non-uniform scale, I believe is what it's called. I'm still fiddling with the leg. You know, I'm gonna drag it over, probably do the same thing here. And drag it to the back. The back's a little skewed, so we're gonna have to set it in, snap it, boom. That's what your snaps are for. There too. Yeah. We're stuck at the model. So you can see this, we're about 21 minutes going, and we're pretty close to a basic model, but there's still more to do on this. We can still add more details, and there's little tricks here that will make it stand out, to make it look like we spent a little bit more time to get this going. And I guess I do kind of do a render or something, or I was trying to get a render with the Windows recorder. It doesn't show the extra window, so I was trying to see if it pulled up, but I don't think it did. I'm still learning that. I think it was like Windows G or something like that to record. But you can still get the idea right here. What it's gonna look like. So I think right here I'm gonna add the like the stitching rolls. So what I'll do is duplicate it, and I'll pick an edge loop to go around, and I'll turn that to a spline, create shape from loop, and I'll do it on both sides. Loop it and then create shape from loop. It's right there, boom. And I'll remove this and select the splines and make it renderable as a circle in the viewport, and we'll scale it down to a reasonable size. You could also remove some of the steps so it's not so high poly, and some of the geometry. You don't really need anything crazy unless you just want to kill your system. So we're gonna drop it down, save some resources. Don't just put geometry for no reason. That's very frustrating. Having a heavy model for no reason, unless you can't help it, then you know, there are times. Look at that. See, pretty straightforward. And we'll probably do the same thing here. Let me cushion it out too. So I'd make a duplicate, and I'll select the edge loop, and do the same thing here, and create shape, and we'll remove that model, and we got our shape from the splines. Gonna mirror it down with the instance, and snap it too. There you go. So this, if you plan on getting to that point where you're going to put the seams in, you might want to have your cushions kind of fluffed out however you wanted them. If you want them more soft or more edgy, you want to do that before you start doing this, because you can probably work something in there to, I don't know, I never really thought about doing it where it's interactively set, but this seems to work. Well, you could probably do a reference and then use that as your. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one, but for now, this works. I'll put the pivot in the center so I can mirror it and not have to snap it through anything. And that way I can just do that in the middle. And that's pretty close on this chair unless I had some more geometry. But we're at 25 minutes. So from there to now, we're just going. And besides that one little point where I try to render, it would probably, we could probably get this out sooner. But I think I try to figure out how to get that in the viewport, and I'll probably mess up somewhere between here and there to make it work in the viewport. But little details like this, you put them in, and it looks like you modeled that. You can tuck that down, that little edge if you need to. But nobody's gonna, unless you're gonna zoom in on it and do some like really crazy stuff from a distance. That chair works. And there you go. Let's see if I get this thing rendered in the viewport. I think I do an active shade or something, but I don't know if it works too good. But that's pretty much the chair, and hope you learned something from this. It's a quick, down and dirty kind of video. Yeah, thanks for watching.